welcome back to the second panel, which has its outset firmly rooted in the creative collaboration. The collaboration of a band. And you could say that this panel will reflect on both Polar Music Prize laureates, Anim and their mission to broaden kids' lives through music, and Metallica starting out as teenagers, still touring the world together. How can music groups form your identity? Can it change the way you look upon yourself and or the world? And does the strength lie in the band or orchestra, giving the individual a context to work within? With me to lead this excellent panel, I have Josephine Forsman, a Swedish drummer, songwriter, and instructor, a founding member of the rock band Sahara Hotnights, and she started playing drums at 10, I think, and she has toured the world, releasing albums, gaining fans, earning gold records and Grammy nominations. And please welcome Josephine Forsman. Before we invite the rest of the band, besides all of this that I presented about you, you're also currently a music instructor in a program called the Loud program in LA. Could you say a few words on that? Because that was partly the reason why you came up with this idea, also forming this panel.
Yeah. So this has been a subject that I've been thinking a lot about because of my experience of starting a band when I was 11 to now working with kids, 11-year-olds starting bands. And I work for an organization called the Loud Program. It's a non-profit organization based in LA. They provide schools with free music lessons. And their idea is to have the kids start a band.
That's fantastic. And we actually have a ready band here, or a panel. Would you like to introduce them and we'll have a seat?
Yeah. Okay, starting with saxophonist and chamber musician Linn Persson. And a drum colleague of mine, Robert Eriksson from the Hellacopters. And let's bring out his son, the drummer, guitar player, and singer Jönsson. Another Northern Swede, artist, coach, and singer Sofia Lilja. And the singer of the Hives, Howlin Pelle. Welcome.
Thank you.
So we're going to start a little bit with your background. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about why you started playing music? Start with you.
Oh, yeah, I'd like to start. I have always been fascinated with the voices and the music. And there is a story about me my mother used to tell me when I was 2 years old, and suddenly struck by the voice of Maria Callas. And since then I've been fixated with voices and the performance and the way music can make me feel. And when I stand on the stage, I can highlight the connection to other people by using my heart to those.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Linn?
I come from a very small town in southern Sweden, and where I grew up there wasn't a lot of musical activities for children, so I was really craving music and longing for playing an instrument and singing in the choir, but there were no options for me to do that. So when I was about 8 years old, a director moved to the place where I come from, and he started a children's musical. So the whole summer we were singing, we were learning our lines, we were dancing together, and performed for an audience. And that was kind of my way into this. So it had nothing to do with what I really wanted to do, was playing an instrument and singing in the choir, but that was my way of entering my musical life, really. And then after that I started playing instruments.
Great. Pelle?
I started a band with some friends. It's an age-old story. And I think I wanted it to transform me into something else, and it worked. So it was about making myself a superhero.
Good.
Something like that.
Jack. Yeah, why did you start playing music?
Well, I saw when my dad did it. I thought it looked fun. So I was like, yeah, I want to play music.
Yeah.
And it was also because I wanted something to do, basically.
It's a good thing to do. Robert?
Started buying records very early, like before kindergarten, I think. Maybe 5, 6 years old I was. Mainly Elvis records, Beatles records, maybe some Hep stars that some of you might know. And then I just got into a bit more tougher music, the later Beatles first, and then I got into hard rock, Kiss and Iron Maiden and stuff like that. And then and Metallica, and then I got a drum kit when I think I was 13. So you're way ahead of me, because you've been playing already for some years. I started playing drums, and in my small village, as you also lived, we had like 5,000 people. There was only 2 bands that I knew of, and they both had drummers, and I played drums, so there was no one to play with. So I just played in my basement for years, and then I moved to another city, and then I found some people to play with, finally. That's
awesome.
Basically how I started.
So to talk a little bit about bands, so most of you you're also in a band. So what was your picture like of having a band? What did you think that it meant to be in a band? Pelle?
Well, I think the idea was to find like a community, a bunch of people who wanted to do the same thing, and we were also from a small town, so the only people that wanted to play a similar type of music were these 5 people, and it wasn't necessarily the people that you would hang out with, or like we were not really friends first. We had a common interest in playing this music, and I think there are pros and cons to both of those. Like either you start a band because you're friends, or you start a band because you want to play music. But I guess my picture of it was that there were older bands in our town, and they got to go on tour, and they got to make records. So I guess my picture of being in a band is if you were good enough, you could release a record and you could go on tour.
Yeah.
And that was what we wanted to do.
Yeah, for me that was also the case. Just the touring seemed the most intriguing. But did it end up being the way you thought it would be?
Better, I think.
Better.
Yeah, I'm very happy with it.
I have to ask one thing, because I'm the one here that I never played in a band. This is the first time I am in a band.
You're in a band now.
I really enjoy it. So I, this. But I get a feeling that you form a band when you're young, and that gives you the opportunity and the tools to form a band together. Is it impossible for an old man like myself to actually start a band? Because it's
No. Of course not. No. It's just.
Do you have any examples of that? I just get a feeling that you have this individualists, and you're not able to actually build something. But so
it's harder to start late, you mean, because then you're already set in your ways.
Yeah, I'm asking.
Shape each other. No, I think you can start a band. My dad formed a Dixieland jazz band when he was 70 or 65 or something. And they had gigs, and
that's awesome.
maybe made some T-shirts or recorded some, and there's no limit to how late you can start. They seem to have and it was fun to see, because it was exactly the same experience we had in our band. They're like the same silly little nibbing and nabbing.
But you become 14, 15 again, and the important thing is not only to make music together and to try to create something together. It's also, well, for me at least, you wanted to, everything around a band, you wanted to rent a van, go play somewhere else. You wanted to make T-shirts, and how is the T-shirt gonna look like, and you design that, and you know you find out that somebody in the band is good at something, and some else is good at some other things, and together you become this good entity.
Yeah. I mean, how important is it to be a team player as a band?
I would say pretty important.
Pretty important.
Otherwise,
It's really important in the beginning.
Yeah.
And then when you've done it for a very long time, everybody wants to keep it going, and then you can almost get away with being a bit less fit. At least that's what it looks like when you see more famous bands. It's sort of like, I guess everyone starts as team players, and then they're sure that they're the reason everything is so great. And then it gets harder to be a team player.
And when you're 70, you can get away with anything.
Yeah. Actually, I would like to ask your band also. That would probably be but that's another panel.
Maybe.
So.
But as a coach, can you teach somebody to be a team player?
Well, you can teach. Well, as I see it, as being a coach, it is to help people, to find their way and find their path, and to, if you want to evolve as a team player, there are things you have to do, but you also have to give nourage to, the inner voice that you want to explore. I think everybody have, this excitement to, find your power and to canalize that through themselves and also through the team they are, bonding to. But that's the secret tool to, to balance that. Yeah. And, when you're standing on the stage in the audience, you can quite easily see who wants to, take 2 steps forward, but you hold them back and so on, and ones who doesn't hold themselves back and take many steps towards the stage. But I think that, and I want to say to you, Alpha, it's never too late, to find your way to music. It's never too late to start to sing. It's never too late to start to perform. So, just go for it. It's really important, yeah.
You kind of said what I wanted to say, but way better.
Oh.
It was good.
Yeah, it was good.
And I just mentioned backstage that I had a drumming course for 2 45-year-old bankers.
I wanted to be a fly on the wall.
You can just start whenever.
Yeah.
And
whoever.
Also you can join someone. You can join a choir, for example. You can join an orchestra or something like that. You don't actually have to start it yourself. There are people out there that already have started it for you, and you can just go and join them.
You have a future in the band.
I kind of like people doing what I want to do, but I'll try. Thank you. I have to work with myself, I think, a little bit first, but it's good. There's hope there.
Yeah.
But so what would you say? How important is it for you in an orchestra, being a soloist, to be a team player?
Very important. Yeah. I mostly play chamber music, but I'd say that orchestra playing is the same thing, but in a larger scale. In a chamber group, for example, I play in a quartet. We have 4 different voices, we're 4 different people, we play 4 different kinds of saxophones, and we have our roles and we have our tasks. And in an orchestra, you have the same thing. You have just more people surrounding you. You have your own section, in my case, the saxophone section, and I have to listen to what they're doing musically and what they're telling me with their voice and their words as well. And then I have to blend into that section. But I also have to listen to the rest of the orchestra and see, maybe I have the same role here as a trumpet player or as a French horn, for example. So I have to be very attentive to what's going on in my own section, what's going on in the other sections around the orchestra, but also to what the conductor is doing, because the conductor is always giving us instructions about the music. So we need to listen and be very attentive to in many different ways. So being a team player is crucial. Otherwise, an orchestra wouldn't work at all.
Yeah, listening is very important.
Yeah.
I also heard recently that it's one of very few things you can do as a human being that lights up. If you have an EKG scan of your brain, it's one of the very few things, playing music with other people, one of the very few things that lights up the entire brain. Everywhere is doing things. So you can take that home, start your own bands.
I have a question just on since we're getting both into contemporary, classical, or if we have a punk band, is there a difference where the band itself has a larger, bigger significance significance in some of the genres?
I mean, the band is, when you played for a while, I think the band becomes more of your, it takes off a little bit of your identity, I think. You know, you think, is that good for a band, or is it bad for the band to do this kind of things, or this kind, you know, you always take, all the decisions you have to make together, sort of. You have to face going on the stage together. You have to do this, and the good and the bad, some sort. You know, and you have to, instead of doing it individually, if you're like.
But in some of these, I get a feeling that also in the punk band, it's like the picture, the band, the trademark. That in the punk band, it's not really the solo. It's going from one gig to another, but the band in itself has the energy. Am I right in that? Is this what you feel when you play in the punk band? Do you feel that that's the unity? Did you choose? Why did you choose Is it because the punk music is the music that you listen to, or is it?
Yeah.
So that's.
It's the music that I listen to, and it's really easy to play. The only thing you gotta know how to play is a power chord, and you don't have to know how to sing.
This is what I'm going to start with. Definitely, this is brilliant.
Have you heard like the classical mid-70s Swedish punk rock bands?
Yeah, well, I've listened to a few of them. Yeah, so I kind of get the picture. I think, but that's a very good thing. You're on spot there, Mo.
Teenagers who don't know how to either play or sing, but it still sounds good.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah, and people enjoy it, obviously. Not only the band. This is what gives also a lot of joy to an audience. So
yeah, that's
fantastic.
It's a good place to continue as well, I think.
Yeah.
No, I'm still doing it.
Yeah.
But that's what we were attracted to too, because it was a punk band. I don't know if it still is, probably in some way. And that's how we started, because A, it was the music we liked, and B, it felt like you could actually pull it off with very little practice.
Yeah. It's simple and you can get going.
Yeah.
I mean, pretty fast. I mean, you know, like.
It's a very low first
threshold.
Instead of
you can keep
practicing
going
for years, and
well, you know,
it might be, you know, you might lose interest. Like, well,
Maybe it's the wrong place to say this, that you don't want to do something where you don't practice music at all. We're at the Royal College of Music here in Stockholm, but still,
I think it's just important to say that you're allowed to play music, no matter how bad it sounds.
And I think everyone agrees there.
Yeah,
that's very good.
But how do you develop as a musician in the same group? What, you know, is there some sort of risk for a stagnation?
Yes.
Is that why you know, band members do solo albums?
That's part of it.
Yeah.
And I think like personal politics are part of it as well, probably. And this idea, I think it's this idea, if you do something and it becomes successful, you do something as a group and it becomes successful, you're going to start to think it has something to do with you. Everybody in the band does, and they start to think that I could do this without the other guys, and usually that's not the case, or girls. But I think that there's a risk and there's a reward. It's sort of like there's this blob of what you are together musically, and you chop off all the ends that are the furthest out, and that becomes the band usually. And then you can focus on that, so you can become very good at this one thing. But you have to sacrifice things in order to do that.
Do you have bands coming to you wanting to be coached?
Yeah.
What is the most common thing that they want help with?
Don't change us. Is often the case. And I say, why should I? Well, it's something like, as you said, Jack. We don't have to sing very well, and we don't have to play very well. I think there's a misconception about using and be able to be to do music, that you have to do it on a special scale.
Yeah.
I think it's really important to get out to everybody that music comes from, I believe it comes from the inside. It's a way to connect with our emotions. And my emotions, I'm allowed to that, and how I express that is my choosing. And of course, you can train, technically, and for the performance and the, PR and whatever. And I'm trained in the College of Music up in the north of Sweden, Piteå. So I was trained in the classical part. And then I went on to doing more like pop, rock, and so on. So I have been like in the both areas, and there's a different cultures, but also the one thing that combines everyone wants to feel something, and to be able to put that out to the world, and to connect to other people. And it's nothing to do, if you're a brilliant singer, or often it's because you have, been able to show your heart through music, and that resonates in other hearts.
Yeah, I think that's the bottom to everything. If you really look at somebody who's playing or singing, and you can tell that they love what they're doing, you become sort of like mesmerized by that.
Yeah,
by that.
she likes it this much. It must be good.
It's like, but it's an important thing, because it's, when you're on a stage playing, or if you're in a studio or doing whatever, you should be, trying to get that personal, your own love for music and singing and playing.
Absolutely.
That should, if you can get that across to the audience, I think you're very successful. Well, that's what at least I'm striving for. Even back from the drums at the back of the stage. It's, you want to get across somehow.
Yeah.
Is there any difference coaching kids and grown-ups? We have been talking a little bit about it, but what would that be?
Kids are more like, how should I say, more like unafraid, and everything is possible, and they just go for it. And once we get older, we start to think about what if, and am I good enough? Should I do this? Who am I? Or all this, and start to doubt yourself, and the fear gets in the way of the communication for the music. But once you accepting, this is who I am, and this is my voice. I don't have any other voice. And what do I want to bring to the world, and why am I doing this? And you lose yourself, it feels like a cliche, but it's so true. When you lose yourself to music and to the energy inside of that, it feels like, the wow effect comes along. And when you stand on the stage or in the audience and people are like, wow, what's that? It's not because, it's perfect. It's, that you can transform yourself. So, and that's... The road to come to that, it's harder with older, but it can be so more profound, because you can use your knowledge and your history and in so deepful way. And with kids, they're like, this unpolished diamond, and they just go, like Jack, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Do you have a lot of advice for your son?
Well, we listen to music together. we play together. I mean, we started playing in I work at this place for teenagers as well, rehearsal rooms and studio and stuff like that. And we set up 2 drum kits, right? And we played in, we went there on Sundays and just played for the sake of it. And then after a while, you said you wanted to play guitar instead.
No.
And both.
We were at a flea market, and we found this 100 crown guitar, which is about $10.
Yeah, it's a very cheap guitar.
So, like the strings were like 1 or 1.5 centimeters away from the neck. So. And the strings were rusty, and sometimes the neck would fall off, but...
we glued it together.
Made for a punk band then.
We glued it together, and then you got my grandmother's guitar later, and that was a little bit better.
No, or did I? I believe that I got my first small electric.
But I have a question also when it comes to coaching. Looking at what we heard today on the workshops having been made and all of this and fast forwarding and finding solutions and kind of skipping a few steps. Is that something that you can provide in getting that kind of trust and being able to have that being self-secure in a way? Is there a way of fast forwarding, in order to actually achieve and become
Do you mean if you know yourself?
Yeah, you said also that this is part of when you grow up, you have problems. This is one of the things that you actually, it's the way you see yourself.
Yes.
And is there a way do we have a trick that we can tell the audience of how to fast forward into becoming a full band member?
Well, let me say it like this. I think music has a brilliant way of, talking with our emotions. And there's, when we start to use music in my work, I work with, that's why I do mental training, and I find myself now studying to become a licensed psychologist, to go that way, because music and your inside works combined together. And I think by using music to transform yourself, and to also to really look inside and to be able to accept yourself and to perform that, it's really healing in a really deep way. And I think that's why music is universal. It's combining all people from all type of backgrounds and generations and culture. So, and I think, this great work of Dr. Ashman, help me here, Anim, it's a brilliant way and a role model how we should use music to help help people to find their inner strength. So it's not, I'm not giving you the quiet answer like it's a fast way, but you have to use music and to, just open up and see what comes.
You're just very smart. You just told us all that there is a way to fast forward. You have the answer, and you're working professionally with this, so everyone knows where to go. So I think that was the best sales pitch I heard for years.
Sorry.
So.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want to talk a little bit about the performance part of being a band, because I've noticed with the bands that I work with, as soon as they have a performance, they get together, they become a closer unit. So what's your experience of that? Is it an important part?
Yes.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, that's basically, you want to be as good as you can possibly get. So every time if you have made a new record, or if you have made 100 concerts, you want the 101 to be even better. You want to top yourself all the time. And if you really don't want to do that, I don't think you should continue. No, but you really have to, push yourself. And
so you can only reach that by performing.
I mean, as for me personally, I like playing. I think, playing live, it's an immediate reaction from the audience. You get it like right after you play the song, you get the response. If you're in a studio, you can be there for a long time, and the result is not heard until maybe months, or in worst case years later. And you kind of, it's the response is very late somehow. So when you push yourself to become better as a band, I'm thinking the way I heard the question was in a live sense.
Yes.
Sort of.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's also, I think that's what I feel is the way to fast forward as in the development of a band, is just playing live. It was something our dad, being a blues fan, told us, that you just play everywhere as much as you can. So there was maybe 2 places to play in our hometown, and we probably played 40. We would just set up anywhere and play, because that was, you learn so much more through, because you can see how people react, and you can feel, and you kind of develop this telepathy as a band. And you notice if you change a member, it changes, and there's it's almost like a supernatural thing where I can feel exactly where everyone is standing, even when they're moving around while we play, even if I'm not looking.
I remember that with your band. You were just playing everywhere.
All the time.
Yeah.
It was the only way we knew of getting better. It was like, and the only way we knew of picking up an audience that we were sure of. All the other stuff we had to rely on, like record labels and newspapers or whatever. But if we could just play to a couple new people every day, you know, half of them or more would like it.
What do you say about that, Linn? The importance of performing in front of an audience?
Well, I guess it's pretty common to get nervous in front of an audience, especially if you have a big audience or if you know someone in the audience that you're a bit scared of. What will that person think about? If your mum is here, for example, or a sibling or something like that. And for me, it was a lot about practicing being nervous. What is it like being in front of a big or a small audience when you're nervous? And what can I do about it? I detected two different kinds of behavior in myself. The first one was that I could be really, really nervous in the morning during the whole day, and then 1 hour before the concert I was just like, well, I've been nervous all day, there's no reason to be nervous now. Or the opposite, where I was calm all day, it was absolutely fine, and then 2 minutes before I entered stage, it was like, oh my God, am I in tune? I have no idea. Do I know the music at all that I'm supposed to play? So playing live was really important for me individually and also with my group to just feel like, do we have the same kind of behavior? Maybe one in the group wouldn't get nervous at all, and maybe one would be devastated before and just barely manage to walk in on stage.
Do you feel you get helped by a group with stage fright or nervousness?
Well, yes.
Yeah.
I would probably be more nervous being all alone in front of everyone than I would be at my safe place. Because music is kind of a safe space. It creates a space where we can be ourselves together and alone. And in that concept, it's much easier when you have the music with you.
Plus, if you're like a group walks out on stage and you're the only one not walking out on stage, like that forces you to actually do it. Otherwise, you're ruining it for everybody. So in that way.
Listen, we would love to continue talking. I think we could have done that for very long. We won't be able to give you all a last word. We will actually give you a few last words to the audience from you, because you as a band member, what do you want to transmit to the audience from your experience? Is this that the reason why you've been working with the band, with Loud, everything? What would be the most significant and most important thing in being in the band?
Well, I think you were talking about that too. Just to have a band means that you have a creative space where you can feel comfortable. And when you're comfortable, you can also get access to just a huge part of yourself, which means you get access to a bigger world. So that's...
I think that was fantastic. Great last words, and thank you very much. Thank you.